But I'll just say a couple things to sort of set the scene for you. As you may have noticed while you were watching the film, all 4 of those case studies were basically on the East Coast. People were in New York or Pennsylvania. And so what we wanted to do in showing the film, obviously, was to just, I think you can all see, that it was very effective in telling the story from everybody's viewpoints, right? The patient, the family, the caregiver, and just how complicated caregiving is, and the reality that our nation is growing older very fast, and we are here in Hawaii even faster. We have a higher than national average proportion of people over the age of 65 here in Hawaii. So that's why HPGS and FACE said, well, we want to show the film, but we want to connect it to Hawaii. We want people to be able to get some sense of, well, what about here in Hawaii? What's going on? What can we learn here? So our panelists today, we have 4 panelists. Darlene Rodrigues is going to go first, and she is a family caregiver. I'm going to say a little bit more about each one when it's their individual turn to speak, but for now I'm just giving you sort of the overview. And Peggy Perkinson, who is currently on potty break, is the director of the Center on Aging at the University of Hawaii. And then Dr. Ceria-Ulep is a professor of nursing at the University of Hawaii and is also a past president of FACE. And Kathleen Wyatt is the president of Hale Haole Hawaii, a nonprofit organization whose mission is to promote positive aging. So each of them is going to talk about caregiving from her personal perspective, and then when each of them has had a chance to speak, we want to give you folks a chance to ask any questions that you may have. But again, sort of the trigger for us for having this whole event is the fact that there was legislation passed and signed this last July that will provide financial assistance to families where a family member is working and wants to be able to keep working, but that would mean hiring a professional caregiver at least part of the time, or at least getting some sort of professional caregiving help for their kupuna. And so that's why we really want people to get a sense of what's available here in Hawaii. So okay, now that all of our panelists are here, I'm going to start with Darlene. Darlene was born and raised on Oahu. Her grandparents immigrated to Hawaii from the Philippines, over 100 years ago, the early 1910s. She cares for her 87-year-old mother, Bernarda, who lives with vascular dementia and Alzheimer's. Darlene is a member of Harris United Methodist Church and a first-year student in the Masters of Divinity program at Claremont School of Theology. Darlene.
So this is the first time that I saw this movie, but these issues I've been speaking about now for about 2 years or more, ever since different kinds of legislation has been going through. I just want to say that I have to say that I think that Hawaii is in denial about what's coming down the road, and it actually mirrors, I think, perhaps my own journey in terms of my own denial about what it is that I've been doing and what I will face even more so in the future. I've been caring for my mother for 10 years. She was diagnosed in 2007, and it's been a slow and gradual decline. She actually fell in 2012 and compressed her back. She had a compressed back fracture. But I want to say that when we first got the diagnosis, it was really bad. She couldn't remember what day it was. She had been off her meds. I have no idea how long. It took a lot to get her even just stable. And it meant that I took off time from work. I was working a 40-hour-a-week job, which meant I was working 50 hours a week or more. And it meant that I did not understand, or I didn't kind of catch it until, I don't know what it was that happened. And she was accusing my brother of something, and she kept going over and over, and then we kind of finally realized something is wrong. And it took a long time for us to figure it out. And it took a lot of time personally for me to figure that out by going to many doctors, and then once the diagnosis was there, set up all the services that she needed, and even find a gerontologist who would see her. So anyway, when she fell, I just really related to the woman who talked about the savings being gone for both the man with Parkinson's and the older lady Dee, who was 94. We burned through my mother's savings so that I could work, and even then I was only working part-time. When this thing first happened with my mother, I actually had to ask, because I kept taking time off, to go down to 30 hours a week. And they were like, okay, but I knew that how could I do my job when I was doing it in 50 and 30, right? So over time, I've had to cut back on work, and so in 2015, I actually left work because it was too much. I was trying to care for her. She's actually, according to a lot of people, really not as bad as some other people that I've seen. She can walk, she can feed herself, she can go to the bathroom by herself, and I'm thinking these are blessings compared to everyone else. And I also am surprised at how long she's lived, because when I first looked up what this might mean, I was like, oh my God, it means she's gonna live only like 4 years, and it's been 10 years, and she's pretty stable with all the new medicines that are coming out. But that means like our savings, her savings, not even her savings has gone down. I have absolutely nothing haven't been paying out anything into my own retirement. I've gone back to school in hopes that once she passes, I don't know when that might be, that I might have something secure, because I have, a spotty 10-year now record of employment, which makes me worry. So anyway, and I'm happy that I can actually come here and talk to you and not cry, which means that I've made some progress in terms of understanding that seeing this as an affirmation that, one, I am not alone, two, that it is hard, and it's a validation that what I am doing is actually valuable. And actually that's taken a long time, and I would actually say that from the caregiver perspective, that's the hardest thing with families, because society tells us that you're not valuable. The society, the way that the pay structure and everything is, it's like how that woman, she's like driving truck and she makes more money. Teachers aren't even paid, So it's like, what is this? Our society is telling us that when we value people in our relationship, it means dilly squat in terms of the other kinds of ways that we think about status. And so as someone who's been raised very A-type personality, so that, I went to Punahou, whatever, it's like to be go, 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 and, you'll be at the top of your game, blah, blah, and all that stuff. To understand that, like caring for my mother is actually, I'm go, 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 that's actually the best thing that I can do at this moment. And it's turned my life around. So for me, I would say, from my viewpoint, the system is broken all around. For the patient, for the person caregiving, for the family, for the people who are caregiving. I could tell you horror stories of the people we've hired in terms of what they've had to go through and the things that we've had to do for them. To myself as a caregiver, it's just, and then the people, the rippling effect of everyone else around us. I'm really happy that the bill passed. At this point, I'm not sure if our family, I think my brother hopefully will be able to, because he caregives, he's the secondary caregiver. I'm thankful for that. For those of us who have smaller and smaller families or who do not have children, I worry about us. I worry about the future generations, because they ain't gonna have many kids either. So where are we gonna go? So anyway, that's just my question, is how is Hawaii valuing, what does Hawaii value? And I would ask that of the governor and all the legislature for that. Anyway, thank you for coming.
Thank you, Darlene. Okay, we're going to really change perspective now and go from personal family caregiver to a professional and a researcher on the issues of aging. So Margaret Perkinson is the director of the Center on Aging at the University of Hawaii. She received her PhD in Human Development and Aging with a specialization in medical anthropology from the University of California at San Francisco, and she's been involved in gerontological research and education for over 35 years. Her research has focused on family caregiving, on dementia, on long-term services and supports, and service learning, not only in the US, but also in Guatemala and China. She is a member of Hawaii's Policy Advisory Board for Elder Affairs, that's a governor-appointed board, and she also a member of the Kapuna Caucus, and she is the convener of the Aging Services in Hawaii Task Force. And she writes a column for Generations magazine, Percy's magazine. She is an elected fellow of the Gerontological Society of America, the Association for Gerontology in Higher Education, and the Society of Applied Anthropology. And she serves as editor-in-chief of the Journal of Cross-Cultural Gerontology. There are other things, but I'm going to stop there. But so you get a sense of how we're really changing perspective now from Darlene's as a family caregiver to this more professional, research-oriented, but also very involved in terms of policy in Hawaii. Thank you.
Thank you for that introduction. And I might want to add that this is my words are not going to be totally research oriented. I'm speaking from the perspective of a family caregiver also. My mother had Parkinson's, so that section with the man with Parkinson's was, really hit home. I'm wondering just about the audience, how many people here are family caregivers? Okay, like a good number. So I hope we have time to make this interactive because it would be so interesting to hear your perspectives. I think the selection of this film was perfect. It covered so many different aspects of caregiving from the perspective of the caregiver and the care receiver and the family members, even the grandchildren, which is one area that's rarely talked about, but you could see, especially that little boy, he was devastated going through all this and was just kind of on the sidelines. So it's important to remember, it's not just one person, it's like a whole family that is going through this and needs support and encouragement. So, that's one thing I'd want to say. Of course, the economic issues are huge. It just was heartbreaking to see those caregivers trying to struggle with, the many personal issues in their lives, just the housing issue, on such a little payment, and this job is extraordinarily demanding. And those of you who are family caregivers know how it can be very physically demanding. I ended up having to get physical therapy because of the care that I gave my mother. I got to the point where I could no longer do the physical part, because I couldn't get her up off the floor when she fell. But it's exhausting. You think, caregiving, you're just sitting next to your mother. But I've never been so tired, and I'm like in the profession, and yet it was a struggle for me to deal with this whole family caregiving experience, and it was, there's only so much a film can do, but I wish that they had said a little bit more about how people selected their caregivers, because that is such a big issue. And often you have so little control. If you're going through an agency, they often switch you on a regular basis. For whatever reason they do that, but so you have to start all over again, training that new caregiver, and all the nuances of, the caregiving that your relative deserves. We ended up, we started with an agency and just couldn't afford it. It was so expensive. And you could see that when the family, the Parkinson's family, that man was an executive in CBS or something. And even they went on Medicaid. So we ended up using, people that we knew through our network. And they were very good, but you know, they couldn't come every time. I mean, it ended up my mother needed 24-hour care. So, you know, they'd bring in people to take their place, and just that whole, you know, looking at the movie, you got the impression that that was one person taking care of one person all the time, and they briefly alluded to the others. But that's a big issue, I think, you know, just trying to train the people, the new people coming in, and helping your parent or relative adjust to the new person. You know, and there are certain things that you can do. I don't want to monopolize the time, but just I've done research on home care and family caregivers, and you know, it was fascinating how some of the people, like a son, you know, really wanted this home care worker to succeed in her work. He went down to Mexico and found this woman that he thought would be perfect, but he wanted to make sure that she would get along with the mother. So, I mean, he bought a new wardrobe for her so that she would kind of fit the mother's mentality of what a caregiver should be, you know, and really kind of coached her. And I think that's something important to remember, that family members have a lot of information, a lot of personal information about the idiosyncrasies of their relative. And if you can share that with the caregiver, you know, that just helps them with their work. And likewise, that caregiver can instruct family members on, you know, how to safely transfer, or how to do a bed bath, or so on. And it was interesting watching the different activities of daily life that the caregivers were giving, because some were a lot more skillful than others, you know, and that's a really important thing too. Caregivers really need appropriate training so that, you know, they know how to transfer. You know, that person with Parkinson's is not going to fall over. You should be using a cane, or that was really something. But anyway, I don't want to, and this goes for once a relative goes into the nursing home as well. You know, family members often are so involved in care and want to continue in that role, and they don't know what to do, what they can do in a nursing home. And there are definitely roles you can play, and that was part of my research too. And I won't go through all of this stuff, but I can give you references. But one thing, in terms of family caregiving and home, I wrote a book called A Guide to Family Caregivers, a family guide to family caregivers. And it touches on what I just mentioned, you know, how you can train the caregiver, and how the caregiver can contribute to the family's process as well. So that's online. I can give you the reference, and it's, you know, the whole thing is online for free. But anyway, there's a lot of research out there on family caregiving, and there's no way I can summarize it, but my heart goes out to everyone who is involved in this process, because it's very, very demanding.
Thank you, Dr. Perkinson. And yes. And keep track of questions you have. We're going to hear from all four, and then we'll open it up to questions, and Percy will go out with the microphone. But I want to go on now to Dr. Clementina Ceria-Ulep. I have a whole page of things to say about her. I'm only going to use part of it because I want to say some other things that are in my head. She is a professor in the College of Nursing at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. Her teaching focuses on adults management and administration, but her research and scholarly activities have been on aging, and her research philosophy is research is applied. She can talk about maybe herself, her family experience as a child. She watched her grandparents live, one of them over 100, and that really lasted with her, about her impressions about how we should treat our kapuna here. But what I want to add about her is that she is a past president of FACE, and for all of FACE's 22-year history, because she has been around since the beginning, she has worked to try to get long-term care legislation passed. So I truly believe that Clem was the happiest person in the room last July, the day the governor signed that bill. I will turn the microphone to you, Clem.
Thank you, Kathy. Good morning, everyone. So my focus will be on the legislation that Kathy had mentioned, because the others will have talked about caregiving. And I think this will touch on our priority as a society. So when FACE came into being in 1996, this was an issue that the members of FACE had raised, taking care of our elderly. And since then, we've been going to the legislature, providing testimony, pushing for a bill to pass. So we had two major victories, 2 times. One, the creation of a payroll tax. At a certain age, an individual in Hawaii can start paying into a state fund at perhaps 18 or 20 years old when they start working, and so that by the time they're at 65 years old or so, or when they need it, then that fund will be available. It passed both houses, but it was vetoed by the governor, and I think that was Caetano at that time. And then we had another bill that passed both sides, and again, it was vetoed by the governor, and I think it was Lingo. Last year, we went before the legislature asking for a 0.50 GTE tax increase to care for our elderly when they age. It would, in 5 years' time, create something like about $40 million for all kupunas who need care in Hawaii. However, I think our priorities, as I said, is not really taking care of our elderly, and it didn't get passed. So this year, finally, after 21 years, we have passed House Bill 607, which became Act 102. And what that is that someone who is caring for someone who is 60 years and older, who needs at least assistance in 2 activities of daily living or instrument of activities of daily living. So activities of daily living are things like bathing, moving around, the ability to feed yourself, dressing, etc. Instruments of activity of daily living is like the ability to go to use the telephone, balance your checkbook, go shopping, things like that. So if you have any deficits, at least 2, of someone who's 60 years and older and who lives at home, and the primary caregiver is working at least 30 hours a week, will have $70 of benefit. And that $70, however, goes directly to the vendor. It doesn't go to the family, because there's also been issues of financial abuse, right? And so then it goes to the vendor as opposed to the family caregiver. And so it was a lot of work. It was 21 years. And for all of you, for any of you who work or who are familiar with the legislative process, who are in politics, it's not easy. You have to get all your people to go and provide testimony, written testimony, go to hearings, and when they have hearings, you don't get a lot of time to prepare your testimony. It's immediate, etc., and a lot of organizing to make that happen. But so $70 a day, that's not much when I know that it takes about $23 to $25 an hour. If your family caregiver has someone coming over to take care of them, actual direct patient care is $23 to $25 an hour. So that's only $3 an hour, right? And someone who's working. But how about a retiree who's caring for a husband or for a wife? Because I know a lot of people from my church who are struggling in that situation. And so, again, as I said, our priority has to be questioned as a society, because I don't think that we are, as Darlene had said, prepared for what's to come. So every 10 seconds, someone is turning in the United States 65 years old. That's 10,000 a day, 4 million in a year. In the 1960s, we have about 7 caregiver to 1 needing care. That's because people had more children, right? Nowadays, it's 2 to 3 for 1 elderly, and not necessarily even someone related to you, right? Because, I mean, our birth rate in the United States is not as high as it used to be. So then, if you have no children, or if they're away from home, my neighbor, where I live, our community, a lot of the elderly, someone comes over to take care of them because their children are away, right? So we need something better than what was just legislated, but it's a start, because we cannot go in there year in and year out and not get a victory, because people were getting very tired. But I do think that we do need more. Thank you.
Thank you, Clem. And our final panelist is Kathleen Wyatt. And this is good because she's going to be able to talk about one alternative about ways that that $70 a day can be used. Kathleen is president of Hau'oli Hawaii, a nonprofit organization whose mission is to promote positive aging through community education programs, adult daycare options, and caregiver support groups. She's a registered nurse with a master's degree in nursing and a master's degree in business administration, and she is also a licensed nursing home administrator and a certified director of nursing in long-term care. And she has other certifications too. She's on the board of directors, again, of the Hawaii Pacific Gerontological Society, the board of directors of the Caregiver Foundation, and the board of directors of the Family Caregiver Coalition. And she is currently president of Adult Daycare Centers of Hawaii, and a member of the Kukua Council, Kukuamau Hospice and Palliative Care. She's got lots of other things she's a member of too. She also does radio shows. I'm not going to say everything on her list, but I think the important thing is what she's going to tell you about at least one option for that $70 a day allowance. Okay, Kathleen, take it away.
Thank you, Kathy. I wanted to start off by saying I was a caregiver for my mother for a very short time because she was diagnosed with cancer in August 5 years ago and died November 4th. So it went very fast, and I blamed her doctor, but that was just me being a nurse. When it happened, I was living here and she lived in Georgia by herself. My sister lives in Georgia as well, but she's not a nurse, and she didn't know how to handle caregiving. So I resigned from my job as director of nursing at a facility here and went home, and for 2 months I slept, ate, and did everything with my mom because she was debilitated. She had cancer in her back. So I remember how exhausted I was. I didn't sleep at night. She'd call me. I had a baby monitor in her room, and then I ended up sleeping with her after that. But she woke up several times during the night and needed help. So I get the exhaustion. I get the frustration. I understood my sister's side because she is not a caregiver. I mean, that's not in her makeup. So I empathize with caregivers. Being in long-term care for it seemed like 100 years, I decided that there was more out there than just warehousing seniors. And there's nothing wrong with nursing homes, and there's nothing wrong with assisted living facilities, but 90%, according to AARP, of our kupuna want to live at home or in their communities. So my vision was to provide a place for them to be able to live at home or in their communities, but have a safe place to be during the day while their caregivers worked. So they wouldn't have to quit their jobs. They wouldn't have to go bankrupt. They would, exhaust all of their family funds. So I started an adult daycare center 2.5 years ago, and it was what I found out was my life's calling, because it keeps the seniors active. It keeps them physically active as well as mentally active. We play games, we do memory things, we do a lot of exercise, but it also is a big help as a respite for caregivers. And that's one of my main focuses too, is to make the client as active and happy as they can be, but also give respite for their caregivers. I also run or facilitate several caregiver support groups. And that is not only cathartic for the caregivers, but it's cathartic for me too, because I empathize with what they're going through. And I would like to let you know that there are caregiver support groups all over the island. So if you don't know about one, call me and I will be glad to direct you to those. I have some really scary statistics about how the aging population is going to multiply over the next several years. But I will say, this is a recent study, well, it's not a recent study, I'm sorry, it's from 2009, but by 2035, they predicted that people age over 60 will be 29.7% of the population, which is a 310% increase since 2010. And the people over age 85 will be 4.5% of the population, which is an 1,157% increase from that time. So Hawaii is not prepared. I'm sorry? Which one? For the 85 plus, it'll be 1,157.5% higher. So with those statistics in mind, there's going to be a lot of people that need care that aren't going to be able to get it. So working with all of these wonderful people is going to help make that situation better by that time. I have the cost comparisons of adult daycare versus home care. And we're adult daycare, if you want to keep your kapuna home, but you need to work or you need to do errands or whatever, it's about, let's see, the adult daycare is about $1,500 a month, and home health aides are $4,957 a month. So you can see it's a lot more economical. And I'm not just touting my facility, but I'm also, as president of the Adult Day Center organization, there are adult daycare facilities all over the island as well. Actually, we're on 5 islands. So if you need those services, it's very beneficial. It gives you respite from your caregiving duties. You can keep your kapuna home in the evenings. They come home happy and tired because they're busy all day. But I empathize with you that are the caregivers, and I'm here for any questions you have. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. So what we wanted to do is, I've been involved with aging for almost 15 years now, and our magazine, Generations Magazine, has been around for almost, well, I took it over 8 years ago, but it's been around for probably 13 years now. What we always wanted to do is provide resources, but first of all, we wanted to address some questions that you may have, or any resources you may be looking for, or any questions, comments. Yeah, I'll walk around here. So your panel maybe can answer the questions, yeah.
Yes, thank you. Could you give some specifics in terms of, is that $70 per day available now? What's the application process? Who does it go to? I mean, I guess that's what I was looking for.
Yeah, the legislation. Grab your microphone, please.
So the legislature appropriated $600,000 this year. For 2017, and I believe the governor's office just released those funds. And next year, they appropriated, the legislature that is, appropriated $6 million. But we have to go back to the legislature for them to release that. It will be implemented by the Executive Office on Aging, and it will be appropriated through this program called Kupuna Caregivers Program. So you would...
So I think it's going to take about a year to get set up. Is that correct? So
about a year to set
$600,000 was
up.
administrative cost to set up the program, be administrated through the Office on Aging. But yeah, it's going to probably take at least a year or so to get that set up.
No, but actually, according to Terry Byers, she is hoping to be able to start serving people in January. Yeah, that's the plan.
That's not going to happen. I'm very involved in a lot of these issues at the Capitol. If you want to get involved, you want to get more information, Kupuna Caucus meets at the Capitol the first Friday of every month. Not in November, though. And they meet at 1:30 to 3:30 at room 325, the first Friday of every month. So you have Department of Health, Department of Human Services, APS, the directors and agents from all the different neighbor islands as well fly in the first Friday of every month. And if you want to get more information, want to speak to people, we usually get anywhere from 3 to 5 legislators there. So it's an open forum. We get about 50 to 70 people there every month. But if you want to get more involved, learn more specifics, I would highly recommend you attend these meetings. There's another organization called Kukua Council that meets the last Friday of every month at Harris United Methodist Church. Is that correct, Kathy? The last Friday of every month, I believe, is from 11:30, 11:45 to about 1. But there's a bunch of advocates there as well. But for what I've been kind of stressing for a family caregiver is that you got to do your own research. You really have to go online or talk to agencies. The city and county of Honolulu has a website called the Hawaii ADRC, Aging and Disability Resource Centers, HawaiiADRC.org. There's a lot of information there as well. But I just want to provide that for you.
I would just like to add that there's been this group called the Kupuna Caregivers Advisory Group that is making sure that this will be implemented, that the law will be implemented as planned. And we've been meeting with Terry Byers, the Executive Office on Aging Director. And she told us in a recent meeting that there will actually be like a media release that will be around maybe December, so be on the lookout. But I can also get your name and number and contact information because this organization that has helped FACE, and that organization is Caring Across Generation, is really keeping track of this. And when there are more information on how to sign up, etc., you can be provided that information. Just give me your name and contact info. Okay, thanks.
And the key is that the Executive Office on Aging will be the entity that is in charge of the money, and then it will go through the ADRCs that Percy just mentioned. But yes, let Clem take your name.
Yes.
No, I just wanted to ask, well, what's the...
The website is HawaiiADRC.org. If you do ADRC.org, it goes to a national website, but the Hawaii one is all the local resources. Oh yeah, we got pamphlets in the back and some handbooks in the back as well. Yes, TJ.
Yes, TJ Davies. I'm on the Kukua Council Board and the AARP Chapter 60 Board, and also the Hawaii Alliance for Retired Americans. At our board meeting this week, the comment was made that adult daycare centers won't be covered by the Kupuna Caregivers Allowance. And it was hard to understand whether it was because they didn't feel the services were able to be contracted or whether it was because of the cost. They were alleging $100 a day. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that, TJ, but TJ is very involved in a lot of these organizations, but I'm not too sure if you heard that, Kathy.
Who was it that was telling you that?
Actually, Joanne K. Aloha, she's on our board, and she mentioned she was paying $100 a day for daycare for her mother.
Okay, I'm not sure where she's going, but that's a very high cost because most of them are a lot less than that.
Right, and one more thing. On the requested amount at the legislature for next year's Kapuna caregiver is DOH is only requesting $2 million.
We're not going to let that happen. We're not going to let that happen. It's a shame that $6 million is appropriated and they will ask for $2 million. So we'll make sure that doesn't happen.
You have 600,000 appropriate unlocked.
The 600,000 was just administrative cost that was given out to set the program up. So,
Next year, the 6 million will go to the aggressive caregiver of parents and need help.
Yes, yeah.
And your organization charges just $1,700 a month. So there's
Well, that's an average. It's from 55 to 75. Right.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I was just reiterating that the adult daycare is approximately $1,700 a month from my notes, and to keep our parents at home with 24/7, luckily we don't all need that, but if we did, 24/7 care would be $5,000 a month per parent.
Correct.
Per parent, right?
Yes, well,
Because we have both our parents, 93 and 95.
Okay, so I don't know if you'd need 2 caregivers at home, but yeah, it's expensive.
But we've got to try to go for that $70 a day,
Yes,
something.
ma'am. I would like to address TJ's comments, though. I was told that adult daycare will be covered, and the $100 a day, I'd love to know which daycare she's going to, because none of the members of our facility, I mean, of our organization, charge that much.
yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
Any other questions?
It could be that the daycare instead of a daycare, because there's two different programs.
Yeah, but, right. Adult day centers are different than what's called adult day health. Adult day health has nurses on staff all the time, and they're more expensive. They do more
not-
services. So that might be those, Kathy, but
They're not that much more expensive.
yeah, I didn't think they
than
were that
daycare.
much. I think like $20 more.
Max.
But Kathy can give you a list of all the adult day centers in the state of Hawaii.
And day health as well.
Day health, yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Just wondering, is there anything for the family caregiver as far as the first panelist who quit her job? You know, what kind of compensation, or is there?
Nothing.
There is not, but that's what the legislation was for. She was asking about, is there any programs to help the family caregiver? That's really what the program was designed for, right? Give her the microphone.
Remember the prior
Give her the microphone.
legislation that I talked about, it would have provided like tax credit for family caregivers,
But that didn't pass.
but did not pass.
So that
Yeah.
the program to talk about now, the $70 a day, that is for help if somebody's working 30 hours or more a week and is a family caregiver. So that $70 would go to the services to take care of your mom or dad during the daytime or nighttime.
So don't quit your job.
Yeah.
What is the
And I don't think this has come up, but it's my understanding the intent of this bill was to allow family caregivers to keep working. So one
Right.
of the requirements that you have to be working 30 hours a week?
30 hours a week. Right.
just part of her question too is, like, what if the elderly has long-term care plan? Can the $70, or does that not qualify it?
So the bill is very clear about that. So it has to be someone living in the community at home, because as even in the film had said, most of us, 90% of the aged, would prefer to stay at home and be cared for at home. And
Well, her question was that if they have long-term care insurance, can he still apply and get the $70 a day? That's a good question.
so I think that to get it, you have to have an income, so much income, and so that
No,
can
I don't
be-
think income is involved. I don't think income is involved.
I thought it did.
No,
No?
it's not involved.
I thought it was.
Yeah, no, it's just a need-based program, from what I understand.
Okay, I can double check, but I thought that was the case.
I do know that long-term care insurance does cover adult daycare, so haven't heard
Yeah,
that.
but she was asking if your parent has a long-term
Right,
care insurance,
right.
could he still apply for $70 a day, right?
That's
That's a
what I
good
thought.
question.
Yeah.
You might want to bring up a legislature next month,
know.
December,
Okay.
at the Kapuna Caucus meeting.
Like long-term care, if they get the care in home, is much less than if they were to go to a facility. to stay home, could you get that extra 3 hours?
Well, that's a good question. Like I said, you probably have to bring it up at the next meeting that you guys have, but that's a good question.
Yeah, it doesn't say whether or not they do. It doesn't say. So I was just looking at the language of the legislation.
Yeah, you try and make sure you have the microphone. Any other questions anybody needs? Okay.
I have a question. What do we do to help to assure that $6 million is put into this fund?
You need to show up at the hearing.
Yeah,
and
you really do.
You need to show
very,
up.
Very involved, and I'll tell you, I'm a big advocate for senior issues, and one of my pet peeves is that there's a lot of homeless money being spent, and it's very much needed. But when you look at homeless people in Hawaii, there's about 8,000 in the whole state. How many people are dealing with caregiving in home? Over 200,000. So it's not a priority with the governor. Homelessness is, because you can see it all over the place, and granted, it's well spent, but it's something that I think we gotta kick and stomp and yell and scream and get out there and protest, and you gotta make it an issue. You really have to make it an issue. You gotta be active.
When do we show this?
Yeah, so.
Give me your name and contact info, and that will be available to provide testimony and
Well, Clem, I think the best thing is that, I would tell you, I would just go, but do you folks have it on your website at all?
we will.
Yeah, the FACE organization pamphlets over there in the back. And a lot of it's done online, by the way. Yeah, so if you can get online, that'd be a good thing to do. But you got to do your research. You got to complain. You got to be aware of what's going on and be active in the legislature. Because I'll be honest with you, I don't think this senior issue is on the top 10 list for the governor, if not the top 20 list for the governor. And we really need to make it an issue. Yes, TJ.
I would like to say something in regards to that. On Wednesday, the 8th, the governor proclaimed that November is Hawaii's Family Caregivers Month. I don't know how many have heard of that. It's just celebrating caregivers, family caregivers. No money involved.
Dr. Perkinson, could you give us the web page where we could find your family guide?
I'll put the link on the webpage for the Center on Aging, because I'm sorry, I should have brought that with me and I didn't. Oh, yeah.
Hi, my question has to do with someone mentioned long-term care insurance. No one's really touched upon that, and if you do have that insurance, could you have that option to stay in your home? Is that applicable?
Well, yeah, you can buy long-term care insurance. I just bought mine 3 months ago. So you have to make sure you have the option to stay at home or in a facility. The old policies, maybe 15, 20 years ago, only allowed you to stay in a facility. You had to go out. But the newer policies, like I said, since that then, has allowed you to stay in the home or go to a facility. Some policies, there's all kind of policies, I'll be honest with you. Some allow you to pay a family member for care. Some allow you have an agency, go to the adult day center. In my magazine, Generations, we have one of our writers, he sells probably the most long-term care insurance in the state of Hawaii. And he said the biggest problem with the long-term care insurance, if your family has long-term care insurance, is making a claim. Because these companies don't want to pay. So they'll find all these different little loopholes to try and get out of it. So you have to have your agent make sure you understand the policy. If your parents have a policy, or if you have a policy, make sure somebody knows there's a copy somewhere so you can read it. So exactly what it pays out per day, per month. How do you make that claim? When you go on and claim, how do you get the money reimbursed to you or sent to you? There's a lot of different things about long-term care insurance. I've been doing my research for 10 years on that. I finally decided on one 3 months ago. So it's all types.
The majority of long-term care insurance kicks in after 90 days. You have to pay out of pocket for 90 days and then it kicks in.
Yeah, there's an elimination period where you gotta, once you file a claim, it doesn't pay for 90 days or 30 days. Like mine, I think, I got mine where it doesn't pay for 6 months. So I'll fund my long-term care for 6 months. What that does is lower my premium. So all this bells and whistles, how you structure, how you plan out your long-term care insurance. Depends on your specific finances, things like that. Yeah, I'm 57. So actually, I'll be honest with you, I've been working in this field for a long time. I work a lot with financial advisors, and there aren't that many financial advisors that sell long-term care insurance. because it doesn't pay out immediately, it pays out slowly. So what's really important is do your research on that. But yeah, the older you are, the more costly you're gonna get. I think it's not, I don't think you can get long-term care insurance after the age of 78 or 79, or right around there. But it can be very expensive. Like my parents bought their long-term care insurance at the age of 75 and 77. They're still alive though, and they don't need care, not quite yet. But I'm sure their premium, and the premiums have gone up dramatically in the last 3 years, if not 4 years. Well, okay, so dollar figure, it really depends on your health, depends on how much you qualify for. You know, if you're over the age, like I'm 57, my premium is $2,100 a year. Is that a lot? Right. But everybody you talk, well, I'm 57 though, so it does go up dramatically. You know, I can't tell you what it would be at 60 or 70 years old, but I can tell you, I would guesstimate if you're 70 years old, it's going to be at least $5,000 to $8,000 a year. So they say, is that a lot? Is that a lot? Exactly right. So a lot of times the financial advisors don't sell it because they think it's too expensive. I said, you want to pay $5,000 a year, or you want to pay $5,000 a month? Bottom line. You know, it's really important. I highly recommend that you look at trying to get long-term care insurance if you can, because personally, I think I've been to national campaign, I've been to DC, I've been a lot of different places, and my perspective on aging caregiving is that you're going to have to take care of yourself. Really, I don't really think you can expect the government, even including the state of Hawaii, to help care for you. I really don't believe it's going to happen. We've been pushing this for years. The $70 a day is a Band-Aid, but the $70 a day only pays 365 days. That's it. That's what, a little over a year. So it's great that we have something to start with, but we're going to hopefully get more down the road, and hopefully that $6 million is appropriated next year. That's going to be the battle. So that $600,000 appropriated this year is to set up the administrative things on how it's going to work and everything. So when you say applying it in January, good luck, because the money hasn't even been appropriated yet. We still got to go to legislature. We still need to fight for that. And even if we get it done by April or when the legislature finishes, when is that money going to be released? It could take a year before it ever gets released. So once you understand the political process, you really understand you got to fight and push and scream and get out there and be vocal and protest. It has to be done. Yeah.
Once you get it, reapply every year.
Well, the $70 a day is 365 days, so they're going to keep track. Once you use up that 365 days, you don't get any more. No, not at this point right now. Not at this point right now. Right. Well, not at this point right now. So it was something that we got in there, and hopefully we can make it bigger and grow it and get the $6 million to $12 million to $20 million, because we're going to need more than that. The GE tax thing that Clem was talking about, 0.5%, the GE tax, I think because of the rail bill, it got extended to 2025 or 2030, it shot us down. It really shot us down. So, I mean, we have one of the best Medicaid plans in the country, if not the best Medicaid plan in the country. You know, and it's really important. You got to take the initiative. You have to ask questions. You got to talk to people, get resources, get contacts, go online, go to these meetings. But really, you got to fight it. You got to do your own research. I counsel thousands of families in 15 years. I've been doing this, and it's really important. You got to do your research. You got to get respite care, because we're seeing now the person caring for the loved one pass away before, because they're dealing with the bookkeeping, cooking, cleaning, everything, and they go down. And once they go down, who's going to care for that person? So you really need to start taking it to heart, taking it seriously. Look at the resources. Like I said, we have resources in the back. If we don't have enough, let us know. You can contact Clem or Kathy through Face, or you can contact me through our Generations magazine. We actually just started a TV show on OC16 3 weeks ago, talking about all these issues. And if you can get it online, go to our website, generations808.com. But any other resource? Yes.
So I understand that $6 million has been appropriated for 2000.
No, it's not been appropriated.
Not yet.
They're asking for it. That was the plan.
Okay.
It's a plan, right?
All right. So let's say that it is going to be.
Right.
Okay. 2019. Okay. So then the following year, 2020, what do we do? Do we ask again? Every year we have to?
Yes.
So the legislation only budgeted for 2017 and 2018. So we have to go back again. And that's why it would have been better to have that 0.5 GTE tax increase, because once that happened, you create a trust fund and it keeps building up funds, right? But that's not the case. But it's very important, as Percy had said, we need to get there. We need to get involved. We need to go to the legislature and talk to our legislatures, because you know what? They only see the same faces all the time. They think we're making things up, right? So if you folks get involved and say, you know, we need it too, I'm retired, but I have a wife I'm taking care of, right? It's not only someone who's working who needs the help. And one of the reasons, I think one of the important things we need to do is prove to the legislature the demand, so that they will appropriate more than $6 million, because the demand is so much more than $6 million a year, right? It's actually like $40 million a year, according to Dr. Nitz, who's been doing from the University of Hawaii Economics Department, who's done over 30 years of calculation and work on this issue. It's a lot of money, but we're not getting it, because unless you go there and complain and cry, they're not going to listen, unfortunately. We have to be in their face.
Certainly it's important to be there in person, but you can also write a testimony, you know, in support of whatever bill that you're interested in. So if it's really hard to get to the Capitol, at least you can have some say.
That's true. You can do it online, and they will actually read off everyone's testimony, whether in person or not. But it's much more effective if you can do it face to face. You need to make time.
Yeah, I do get it that it's kind of shibai, because we got the 600,000, but really the 6 million is iffy. So, and I guess just another commentary. My parents paid long-term care insurance for 19 years, each paying $22,000, and I personally filed a claim for my father, which was denied because insurance covers, Medicare covers SNF for 90 days, and the insurance, long-term care insurance won't pay as long as an insurance is paying for that. So they wasted $44,000 of their hard-earned money for insurance that won't pay diddly squat. But I do have a question, since my mother has dementia at home, is how can you convince a parent that they really need the 24/7 care when they think that they are independent?
That's a good question. Actually, my mother-in-law is 94 years old, or 95 years old now. Same thing. Her husband passed away 40 years ago. She lived by herself all these years up at Panelists, and I was worried about her for like the last 8 years, till she finally broke her hip or fell down for the third time, finally fractured her hip. And I've been telling the family has a doctor, 2 attorneys, and my wife, and she didn't want to go to a nursing facility, didn't want to go to adult day center. I could tell you story after story, and they don't want to go. Let me ask you this, at your age, and when you get older, you probably don't want to go either. It's a very difficult situation to handle. It's psychologically versus men versus women. But I'll tell you, one of the things that I do is I would tell you, walk your mom to the facility, whether it's an adult day center or a nursing facility like we did with my mother-in-law. The second one she finally liked, where she's there, I think we're having dinner with her tomorrow night. She's at One Kalakaua. And what's funny about this whole thing is that she sees her classmates from McKinley back where she graduated in 40-something. She found her cousin lives in the same place. Now we have to make an appointment just to see her because she's busy. So, and then another good friend of mine, the mother did not want to go to adult day center. So one day she just took her there and said, "Wait over here. I'm going to go talk to the lady over here." So she sat down and looked around, all these people, all her peers her age. She goes, "Wow, this is different than being at home." And now she loves it. Now she gets up at 6 o'clock in the morning and say, "When are we going to go?" So every family is different. You gotta kind of be sneaky. You gotta be coercive, gotta be a little smart about how to change their thought and their environment. I always recommend take a visit. Or to go say you can have lunch and just talk stories, sit down, because if you can see other people your age, like my mother-in-law, it's amazing. The transformation, she never thought it would be like that. Because everybody thinks when you go to a facility, that's where you're gonna die. But the main thing is that she has a care now, she has a support. When we call her up, if she didn't answer the phone, we had to drive up to Panelists. Where now we don't have to worry about her anymore. So I highly recommend that if your family can afford that. And I deal with families every day. And here's today, here's when you die. People always worry about when they die, what my kids are gonna get. I say, that's great. But I worry about in between, before they die. And yes, the kids, the family, you always wanna give the kids something, but really it's important. You have to take care of yourself now. And for your men out there, make sure you take care of your wives, because that's going to be taking care of you down the road. I highly recommend you do that, Yeah.
Can I just comment? If you look at the research, there are different stages that caregivers go through in providing care. And what you allude to, like when you finally decide to bring people into the home, that's a huge transition, both for the care receiver and the caregiver, because just anecdotally, but also from the research, that's your private space, and you're bringing in people, you just don't know. So I think it's really important to, if you have a chance to meet with the caregiver, the paid caregiver beforehand, and kind of coach that person, like, oh, this is what my mom really is looking for, or don't do this, don't talk about politics, you're gonna really upset her, but talk about baseball, she loves it. You can kind of, what your parent likes, so you can go a long way toward easing that transition by just helping that caregiver.
Any last questions, comments? Yes, sir. Oh. Go ahead, Kathy.
I want to say that I had a client that was having a lot of trouble with the home care company that she was using. So I have put myself out there as an advocate. I will interview them with you. I have a lot of connections to the home health agencies. So that's what and now she's happy as a client because she's very comfortable with them, and we told them, I was able to talk her through what she needed to tell the agency of what she needed from them, which she wasn't getting from the last people.
Well, I just wanted to thank you guys for putting this on. I think there's a great need that it's a tidal wave ready to wash over our country. I follow your magazine, I followed your show. I hope that the information here, you'll keep a regular, because the updates, because the system is rigged, whether it's insurance, politics, it's really tough. I took care of my dad for 10 years with Parkinson's, and my mom at the same time with dementia, who's still alive. You have to be a patient advocate, you have to fight the healthcare system, family turmoil, it's a lot, and I'm sure everybody in this room can identify with that. So I just wanted to thank you guys for putting this on, and I hope it continues, because like you said, until you get in the legislature's face, ain't nothing gonna happen.
Yeah, you really should talk, thank you. You really should talk to your legislature wherever you live, your senator, the House representative is really, really important. You gotta argue. Our magazine has a lot of resources on our website. We do a radio show every weekend. We do a TV show almost every day. Actually, everybody here on this panel has been on my radio show. Hopefully our TV show next coming months, because it's a big issue. We're gonna blow it up, we're gonna put it on TV, we're gonna show these stories, and we gotta thank this panel, Darlene, Peggy, Clem, and Kathy, and of course, Kathy Jacobs here. And thanks to Catholic Charities. I think Diane stepped out.
And Percy, I just want to acknowledge FACE, AARP, ILWU, PABEA, all the members here, because they worked very hard for over 21 years. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you.